Hello and welcome back to episode 13 of the Outside the Numbers podcast. We took a 2 week break, and we just kind of not a lot of headlines coming in, let some time pass, and we are back. We're going to start rearing up for the season, training camp in the next month or so. But in the meantime, we've got some pretty compelling headlines, Ethan. Do you want to bring us in? Well, compelling. I was going to say bring us in with the first one, less compelling, more heartbreaking.
Jim
Jim
Brown.
Brown passes away at the age of 87. I don't know how much looking into this you've done. I feel like I just keep hearing a total conflict of people trying to, because obviously he has a tough past. He had some legal issues and some issues with domestic violence, but then obviously when you Google him, it doesn't say professional football player. It says civil rights activist. So a lot of people just trying to forgive certain things and still appreciate his legacy while not forgiving certain aspects of his life.
And 87 is nothing to be ashamed of. It's a good one. Good, long life.
So where do you think he? I mean, I know we did not grow up in the Jim Brown era or the early post Jim Brown era. We're quite far removed.
Yeah.
But where do you place him in the top maybe 5 running backs of all time?
Feel like he'd hover around 4-3. Barry Sanders is the obvious one. Honestly, I feel like anything under, as far as the top 5 goes, anything under Sanders is almost a toss-up. Honestly.
Yeah, and then it's because first of all I agree with you. Secondly, I feel like I hear a lot of people that say with like a lot of confidence that he is the greatest of all time.
I haven't heard that.
And perhaps now
Haven't heard that.
you've
No,
heard
I
that.
haven't.
Oh, dude, people say it. I don't know, and perhaps today is not the day to sit here and argue against the greatness of Jim Brown. There are maybe better things to do, but it's right there. He is that close. He had a shorter career, but he was having regular 1,000-yard seasons when those just simply weren't really a thing.
Yeah.
And obviously in 10-game seasons. Rest in peace to the late great Jim Brown. And we move straight from this into bring us in with the Washington Commanders. What's new with them?
So our note on this Google Doc is the Washington Commanders are incompetent. And that's because they were denied trademark for the Commanders. Applied for, which is astonishing to me because that's just the most Commanders thing I've ever heard in my life. They've like played a season with this name already. Apparently, it's just some guy that put in like a bunch of trademark requests just before they did, which means they announced the name before they had put in a trademark request, which I feel like is an oversight. And
sold probably 100,000 jerseys.
Yeah,
I mean, just plenty of. So this is, like you were saying, this is an area man. This is an Alexandria, Virginia local. And let me see if I can get his name, just because he deserves this. Martin McCauley.
what a guy.
Area Alexandria local, who back in 2013 apparently trademarked a number of names, which I kid you not included the Washington Space Commanders, the Washington Red-Tailed Hawks, the Washington Shape-Shifting Wolves, and the Washington Commanders. And apparently he sold a number of t-shirts on eBay, and the premise at the time was he was just selling like fake football team paraphernalia. I can't imagine
It's kind of confusing
what his motives were. It's
because that's
very
very
confusing.
early.
Yeah,
Like they were very much. Still
there weren't really talks about the name being changed back then,
unless there were, and he had some kind of inside intel and just waited the 10 years for it to take fruit, I guess. It's amazing, really. Because like now I'm wondering what in the world has to happen.
And now I don't know, because when I was texted by my father-in-law, who is a Commanders fan, and my immediate thought was just like, I mean, he didn't say, I mean, he hasn't been like enthusiastic about this new name, but like I feel like my reaction was immediately like, oh, so they basically needed a trademark office to tell them this name is terrible. Like if they were going to change the name, they should have done it because all of the fans, when they heard the new name, were just like, oh,
Yeah.
that's okay. That's like maybe the most bland name you possibly could have come up with. But that's not the reason why. It's because Macaulay, local man in 2013, at least applied, if not was granted, the trademark for the Washington Commanders. Just incredible stuff out of
So
Washington.
I just wondered if like they must have to pay him for the trademark, because at this point it would be silly if they haven't granted it to him yet, and they're like, well, he applied first, and they're going to ask him like if he wants it. If he says no, he's dumb. So he's gonna say yes.
Yeah, he's not saying
He's gonna
no.
be like, yeah, I want that, and they're gonna have to pay him a ton of money, or not use the name. Which like if I'm for them changing it again, I think that would be even funny.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
just
like 4 names in 5 years would be one of the most legendary runs in all
yeah,
of
and they
American
have
sports
they
history.
have a few slightly successful examples that they could pick from if they look at Macaulay's other requests.
The
They
Washington
shape-shifting
shape-shifting
wolves.
wolves.
That would be awesome. That's definitely less
Dude,
bland.
I would look, I'm always going to be a Cowboys fan. I would go crazy in support of the Washington shapeshifting Wolves.
I'm
Yeah,
immediately
Macaulay was
buying
onto
5 jerseys.
something.
Immediately.
Yep, 100%. So yeah, well, I just Washington. This is nothing new. It had been they were past due for a headline like this, and so when we heard it, it was just like,
No, it
yep,
makes sense.
that is Washington. That is exactly something that they would do.
uh, no, yeah. When you were telling
Uh,
me about it, I was like, that has to be fake. But then part of me is like, it's
yeah.
probably not, honestly. With like the way that they run things over there, it's believable. And sure enough,
That's just brilliant.
fantastic.
I cannot wait to see because I don't know where we are. I thought that we had gone final with the Josh Harris purchase, and I can't tell where we are in that. It always feels like there's been like 5 announcements where they're like, Josh Harris is now the owner, and then they're like, a paper has to get signed, and then like, oh, it's signed, and then it's like, but it's now 99% done. If the most recent one is true, and he is like 100% the new owner, and his first task, like a week in, it's just like, hey, the former ownership literally didn't even run a check on Commanders. We're gonna need you to pay this random jabroni like $20 million for the rights to this horrible name. I love it. I love it so much. It brings me so much joy. I cannot wait to watch the Washington Red Tail Hawks take the field in 2022. That's just a better name, honestly. If you're gonna pay the dude an absurd settlement, go get the shapeshifting wolves. Go get the
Right?
Washington Space Commanders.
Space Commanders.
There's a lot
So
that can be
close, and
done.
it's already you're halfway there. You could change.
Yeah, you wouldn't even have to
Yeah,
rebrand that much.
just put like space on the helmet.
So that was bashing the Commanders. That will be a regular segment. I think I'm just it's wonderful. But we will jump ship as the Commanders sink. We will jump off and cover DeAndre Hopkins, who was the pre-draft. It felt like he was the guy that everyone was talking about. If there's going to be a mid-draft second round trade, a third round trade involving D Hop, nothing happened. They get through the draft. They get a month later, still no buzz. And from what I can tell, because you would think, why would the Arizona Cardinals release maybe their only good player? And the reasoning seems to be that they literally just could not get a trade figured out. And now,
So keep him.
you know,
You know.
yeah,
I mean, I'm not.
what was he going to do?
Yeah. I'm. It's.
Do you hold out?
I mean, as the team, I would think so. But I mean, it's exciting to see that he's released, because part of me was like something in Arizona was dragging him down, and he wasn't reaching his full potential. Because it was like as soon as he went from Houston to Arizona, his game dropped off big time, and that was confusing. So I feel like this might be one of those players that we see get a change of scenery and then come back to life. So that would be
Yeah.
maybe in New Orleans. I don't know. That'd be neat, I think.
Oh no,
It
let's
would,
no. I'm not gonna let you dance away with this. You were we were talking pre-show, and it may have come up that you were that you were deceived by a fake
I
Twitter
got duped.
account titled named DeAndre Hopkins, announcing that he was excited for his future with Derek Carr.
He was, yeah, it was like let's put in work and tag Derek Carr and Michael Thomas, and I was like, oh,
Was that the best minute of your
so yeah,
offseason? I mean, that had to
yeah,
be.
easily, because I was like, I didn't even think that it was an official thing. I just thought that he was saying, hey, I'm free agent now. Let's go put in work, which I would have been extremely excited
Yeah,
about,
call out these
just
players
for
and
him to say, hey, let's go work out. But alas,
nope, still a free agent. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry for you. In the very least, it provides us with some type like something to speculate about in the month of May. We already see. I don't think he's named teams, but you have people throwing out. I mean, when you're dealing with a trade, there's potential that you get traded to Washington and you're receiving passes from Sam Howell. When you're released, he could potentially be a chief. I mean, this really is like you have you have the interest of probably a number of playoff contenders, if not all of them from last year. So yeah, it's just exciting. He's well past
yeah,
his prime, but you have to imagine there's some gas left in the tank, and it's going to help to not be receiving passes from. I mean, I know Kyler Murray was there a bit, but Colt
right,
McCoy, I think
yeah,
it's been a tough look. And even you go back further into the DeAndre Hopkins career, there was an era where he was I wouldn't say unquestioned, but he was always considered in maybe the
yeah,
top
yeah,
three. And his quarterbacks were pre Deshaun Watson Texans.
yeah,
And we're talking like Matt Schaub, Brandon Whedon. I mean, just like a slew of total,
yeah,
mediocrity at quarterback. So he's never really had. I mean, Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, obviously in his prime, best quarterback he's had. Then Kyler Murray, but now he could go play
yeah,
with Mahomes, with Josh
which
Allen, and
would
that's
be
just
very fun to
exciting to
see.
think about.
Potentially an elite receiver going up with or pairing with some elite quarterback. Like Deshaun Watson was always good, but I don't think he was ever as good as like Josh Allen is or Herbert even. Certainly not Mahomes.
Oh, that's my new favorite. That's my new favorite location. Oh, I love it.
That would be, yeah,
Okay, yep.
right?
I am. Besides the
Yeah, which
Saints,
like
for
I
your
don't know if we
sake,
can
I
even
am now
swing that.
aboard the Los Angeles Chargers
I don't know
train.
if we could possibly swing that. But with
Yeah,
Herbert,
there's no way Mickey Loomis could figure out how to work the cap.
you would never.
He never.
He is swamped.
No, he would never plunge the team into
No,
to debt for another
just put it into the
however
future.
long. No, no.
Tomorrow's problem.
Responsible financial person. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So that's our So that's
Speaking of the Saints,
DeAndre Hopkins.
we brought in the goat to help install Derek Carr.
Oh, okay. So you say the goat. Did
It shouldn't be confusing.
did surely you mean Drew
No,
Brees, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time,
no.
Saints quarterback who won them their only Super Bowl in franchise history. Surely you mean they brought Drew Brees in to help Derek Carr and install him into the
No,
offense, right?
no,
That's what
this
you mean?
shouldn't be this difficult, Shelby. You need to stop thinking Saints. Think, think
Oh, you
Raiders.
mean like the greatest
Yes, the
football coach of
greatest
all time.
football coach of all time. I should have specified coach. I'm sorry.
Then that means that they brought in
The
John
John
Gruden.
Gruden was in the Saints facility to help install the Derek Carr onto our, which I thought was really cool, especially since because of the thorough involvement that John Gruden has had with the Saints organization in the past. You know, so I was like, oh,
Right.
that's perfect. He's been around so much. He knows the ins and outs
And he
like
was
the back of his hands.
and he was around Derek Carr for a year and a
Yeah,
half
right?
one time, so
They met
surely
each
he
other. They
knows.
probably had dinner a few times. They're comfortable. Let's bring that guy. Make it
Oh,
make sense.
yeah, and no, and it's like, and you wouldn't want what you wouldn't want to do is you wouldn't want to bring in somebody that's gonna like draw a bunch of like critical headlines for
Right.
no reason. That would make no sense. So yeah, you bring in the greatest coach of all time, John Gruden. He may have sent some emails. He may have not. There was an investigation. Maybe we don't know their findings. Maybe we do. Doesn't change the fact that he, the goat is helping in New Orleans. Derek Carr, the experiment is
It's
already off to a great
going
start.
well. Going well. Installment phase complete.
um, so on the topic of, and I won't tie this directly, but I'll say it's a similar topic. I know your thoughts on this, and I have my own. Patrick Mahomes lists his top 5 quarterbacks of all time, and you think there might be an omission. I'm going to read off this top 5, which, first of all, he didn't include himself. That's fine. That makes sense. Who's going to list
Yeah,
themselves?
he's young.
He's also 6 years into a career, 5 years into a career. He lists. He cheats a bit, and he gives 2 quarterbacks tied for 5. But we'll go top to bottom. We got number 1, Tom Brady. No. Nobody's arguing with that. Peyton Manning, pretty commonly put right around the 2-3, maybe slips down to 4 area. Aaron Rodgers, Joe Montana, and then we get John Elway and Dan Marino tied for 5th. So that's, first of all, I mean, that's just his top 6 quarterbacks of all time. Did not have a full grasp on that assignment, clearly, but you had a qualm.
It's just gonna always bug me, and I'm like trying my best. I was trying my best not to be a blind homer when I read this and I saw the article pop up on a notification and it just said Patrick Mahomes top 5 quarterbacks, and I had to see, and I knew I was going to be disappointed. But to not mention the passing yards record holder, completion percentage record holder, more 5,000 yard seasons than anybody, like I just, and this isn't like a thing at Mahomes, whatever. It's ever, nobody mentions it. Nobody ever mentions Drew Brees in the top 5 quarterback conversation. And I feel like he should at least be in the conversation. With all those records, being a 6-foot guy with, 29th through 32 ranked defenses on his team, still taking him to the playoffs. I don't know. Just a feeling.
No, I purposely, I'm poking fun. I kind of wholeheartedly agree. I think it's pretty ridiculous that that Breeze is omitted here, even after he gets down to 6th, which just, once again, not the assignment. But, and you obviously, we've talked about this on the podcast before. You once famously submitted a paper fully detailing your arguments of why Drew Brees was better than Tom Brady because he played in the NFC. You have since, I believe, relinquished you have not held that stance. But to say not even 3, not even 4.
Right.
I'm with you. It's ridiculous. We didn't see Marino play
doesn't
live.
have a Super Bowl.
We didn't see Elway play live. No.
Brees at least has a Super Bowl. Brees brought the first Super Bowl to the organization 3 years after.
You know what's crazy
Katrina.
too is, I mean, it's no, very fair. You obviously can't. I mean, Super Bowl. Even okay, and here's the crazy thing. Even if you took away the Super Bowl, because I'm the fan of a team where I had a quarterback who won 3 Super Bowls, and he's never even almost talked about. He's somewhere around 10, I guess, for most people, which is fine. He had a relatively short career, and he had a ton of talent around him. But no, you could take Drew Brees' Super Bowl away and just have the stats, and they would still be enough to leverage him. 4, please, 4.
I would think. I mean,
at least
it's NFL all-time records that he holds, several of them, and it's overlooked.
Toughness, longevity, and it's not even like an Emmitt Smith career where people are like, Barry Sanders better short career. Drew, like, he played that long, but he had, as you said, the record for most 5,000 yard seasons. He played for a long time, but it's not like he wasn't playing at the absolute top of his game that entire time, minus maybe 2021. So no, it's a crazy take. I appreciate that you're not giving, you're not lumping this all on Mahomes. This is a pretty media wide.
Well, and I think Mahomes, by the end of his career, I think it will be, whether or not he has the most Super Bowls, I feel like people are going to see him as the best passer of a football that have ever touched the field. So it looks that way. We'll see.
Yeah, no, I'm right with you there. I like, it's crazy because you're talking career, but based on what I've seen, who would not, like, if you could sign up for your franchise right now to have well, I mean, you got Derek Carr. Wait, no, I'm sorry. I'm not talking. I have Dak Prescott. Forget him though. Say Derek Carr and Dak Prescott don't exist. Everything surrounding is there. And you can take a rookie Tom Brady, you can take a rookie Patrick Mahomes, you can take a rookie Aaron Rodgers. I don't know. Mahomes is not third
No,
on that list for me. I don't know the exact order, but it's not absurd to say
I
he
probably
could be the
would
one.
take him. I feel like it, honestly,
Yeah. I mean, he's
I
elevated.
probably would have put Brady third on that list because coming in, he didn't look like he was gonna be able to do anything in the league. Come on, dude. Like as far as like being,
Oh, well, no. I mean, if you're looking at him out
yeah,
of
you're looking
college,
at their
yeah,
rookie
no, but
season.
like if you look
Or
at
going,
his,
I guess okay, if you're completed rookie season.
if you're looking at maybe the height of their
Okay,
first
okay,
few years, or let's just say Mahomes is 5 years in, you're looking at maybe their first 5 years.
okay. I see.
For each respective player, all three got a Super Bowl in their first 5 years. Mahomes and Brady both got two in their first 5 years. I think Brady might have gotten three. But when you're looking at all three of those, if you're judging just off of that, I'm taking Mahomes. If you had any other contingencies, maybe somebody
Yeah,
else. But we'll wait to have that GOAT conversation. But he is certainly there, and he was being he was trying to avoid
yeah,
looking like an
yeah,
a-hole by just leaving his name off this list. But he could have put it on there, and nobody would have been like,
yeah.
"Oh,
Right.
this guy's so pompous," I would have been like, "Oh, yeah, no, Mahomes, yeah, absolutely." In fact, I think Travis Kelce really recently did like his top 4 or 5 tight ends, and he put himself in there.
Yeah.
And
No.
I don't disagree. It's like
Yeah.
if you are,
It's like if Gronk didn't put himself in the tight end. Like Gronk would be like Gronk, 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 Gronk.
that's that's tough. um, so to close us out, and this is well known by now, Russell Wilson. I was listening to a podcast from days of old. I was listening to a podcast from 2017, and the host was talking about how at the time, this is when it was during an off season before the 2017 season, where the Seahawks, and I forget if they ended up trading him during that off season, but the whole off season was consumed by rumors that the Seahawks were looking to trade Richard Sherman, and this is post. This is kind of like you're looking at the Legion of Boom maybe fading from popularity, and they're thinking about trading him. But at the time, in 2017, there were reports of Richard Sherman kind of hinting at maybe Russell Wilson gets a little too much credit, right? I think it is a pretty common sentiment among that 2013, 2014, those Super Bowl teams that Russell Wilson was getting a lot of the credit for the team's success and not enough criticism. And also in the pre-show, you mentioned that
Right.
pass at the goal
Pete
line.
Carroll called a run up the middle with beast mode, and he audibled out of it. And what you were saying was that there's been some like reports that he struggles when a coach wants to be like the leader and the coach and the last authority. And so things are starting to connect where you're like, okay, so he has a problem with not being his own coach, you know. And so he audibled out of this play and then lost him the Super Bowl. If that's what I mean, it seems like Richard Sherman, that's the kind of thing that's gonna get him to that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, and so you're looking at the reporting. This is more recently. Now we're back in 2023. KJ Wright, former Seahawks linebacker, comes out and says that, like you're saying, he struggles with overpowering coaches, right? So he's saying that KJ Wright says that from what he's heard, Sean Payton has been known to, in the locker room after a loss, really go after players whose fault it was. He's not going to be your Wade Phillips or your Mike McCarthy, where it's just this milk toast, like, hey, go get him. He goes after guys personally, and he attacks them for what they did wrong. Russell Wilson, as we know, it seems like so he seems like he can't handle this, and it feels like Nathaniel Hackett in this past year, from what I've read, he seemed like he was very far from Sean Payton. He's a real players coach. He's not going to get after you as much for individual issues. And obviously, you would think in that case that Russell Wilson thrived in 2023. You would certainly think. However, he played absolutely terrible. He shocked the world. But now you're looking at it from, hindsight is 2020, but we're starting to connect the dots here. Has Russell Wilson ever been?
I don't know. Because,
good?
Okay, so he always starts the season off strong. The big thing around him, the big narrative was that he's always like MVP caliber quarterback at the first half of the season. You hit halfway and then he starts declining and then stinks in the playoffs. Or at least that's like most of the time. Is that actually the case? Or is he just fresh and then not fresh and always...
And I'll throw this out there, or the defense starts off the year playing so well that his play is elevated, and as injuries and the season carries on, his defense is not on top of their game as much, and his play reflects that.
Yeah.
Because as we know, Geno Smith went and set the Seahawks all-time passing yards record last year.
I forgot about that.
That is absurd.
That's stupid.
That might be more absurd than Russell Wilson being horrible before we started connecting these dots, when we thought Russell Wilson, great quarterback, going to a team where he's going to continue to be great. The fact that Geno Smith, like 7-year backup, who when he was your backup, you weren't like necessarily even comfortable with him being your backup. He goes to the Seattle Seahawks and immediately elevates his play above that of Russell Wilson, Super Bowl winning quarterback. There's a lot to figure out here. We may have to do, I tell you what, we're hitting 30 minutes. This deserves somewhat of a deep dive. We're gonna get some research in. We're gonna get some articles from 2017.
Looking back
through the years, we're gonna chart this map out. We're gonna figure it out.
Has he somehow been an extremely highly paid bad quarterback for so many years?
It's starting to feel like it. I genuinely can't wait. We'll see if it's next Friday or early in the week of. But this is fantastic stuff. I tell you what, not to downplay how, because this actually is incredibly compelling, but this is the type of stuff that we can do in the off season, because when the season starts, we're not going to have time to sit here and think,
speculate.
Has Russell Wilson ever been good? We're going to be like, how did he throw 4 interceptions against the Texans in week 4? In the first half. So we'll have more pressing issues, but I tell you what, research, we'll be back to you. But for now, this has been episode 13 of the Outside the Numbers podcast. I am Shelby Allen.
I'm Ethan Manjuri.
And we will get back to you next week.